Hey guys, what's up? It's Matt. It is the RYLA Routine. It is officially almost a week from Christmas. I got the amazing Elijah with me today, who also has some amazing confetti there. Elijah, what's up, man?
Hey, what's up, Matt? How you doing?
I am awesome. I am awesome. Again, it's like, here we are, literally almost a week from Christmas. Um, even as I'm a big kid. I mean, I think I've said that a few weeks, and like, people know my love for Christmas tree cakes if you know me well enough. But I just love Christmas. I think a little bit of joy goes a long ways. It seems to be people will do a little bit more for people during the holidays, in regards to being kind and reaching out and seeing if they can help out in any way. And you see a lot of people show up for other people during this time, which I just love. So I appreciate you
Right.
giving me time
And,
this
and
week,
you're dressed,
especially.
you're dressed for the occasion too.
Yeah,
And
I got my
I'm
it's
happy to
it's
be
about
here.
to get awesome shirt. You got your change starts with me. I pull out
Yeah.
the Christmas blazer and we're ready to go. So I gotta ask you though as a question before we start talking about RYLA. As I was thinking through some things and some things that I may not know. Um, so I know you're from Missouri, right?
Yes, sir.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and I know that you spend some time doing some theater. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
So theater, it's funny. I never took any theater classes since high school. Same with art. The only art class that I took in high school was sculpture. So everything with drawing, everything that you
Wow.
see me doing that is just stuff that I do offhand. The theater came from doing speech and debate. So the speech side of it, I was doing one-man performances, no props. It was a 10-minute script, and I was performing in front of judges, other competitors. And so that eventually got me into the Shrek the Musical, believe it or not.
You say
So
Shrek?
Shrek the Musical, yes, sir. So
That's
this is senior year.
yeah,
I have about twice the hair that I do now. It's a
right.
pompadour, so it's big and puffy. And of course, being the redhead, I'm trying to go out for Gingy. But that's not the case. My theater teacher, I love her to death. She decided that I'm going to be the big bad wolf. The difference though is that of course I have the old lady outfit, very similar to the movie. But on stage, there's a big musical number that is they take off the nanny dress, and it's this red flowing sequence dress. And so I'm dressed on stage, just dancing around, singing. And this is kind of my introduction to being up on stage.
Yeah.
Uh, so from here on out, I had a close friend of mine here in Carthage that got me into theater, community theater.
Okay.
And so I've done 3 or 4 shows here now. It's awesome to be out there interacting with everyone. You're working with directors, lots of different cast members. It's also fun just seeing all the friends and people that go out to see you. It's fun just making people laugh. It's something that I always enjoy doing.
That's awesome, man. I know we've had these conversations, but I was like sitting here thinking, I was like, there's stuff that I feel like about Elijah that like I don't think I talk about enough, and that's one of those things. Like I just think you're awesome with one, amazingly artistic. I'm impressed to know that now that for you
Thank
to
you.
say I've only taken one class sculpting, like your drawing skills, I mean, are just amazing. And then you've got this theater side of things. Like man, mad props to you because I think I think everybody has an opportunity there with that, and some people take advantage of and try new things. Some people don't. Slider, how you doing,
Right.
buddy? Slider,
Hey, Spider, what's up?
Slider, the RYLA dog has decided to come see us. Hey, you got to leave. We were talking about people acting, and here you are. So we're gonna get Slider out. I mean, I was making fun of Piper for her cats, and then we got this guy coming to see us. So,
I've got my door shut. I've got 3 cats.
well,
And
this is
they've been
absolutely
trying to get under the door. So I
100%,
feel
100% improv. Like this isn't scripted. I guess that's what it tells us. Like it's not like this
oh yeah.
uber like, professional thing. But so you're from Carthage, right? Is that correct?
Yes, born in Carthage.
Okay. So what's it like? What's it like going to Carthage, and how did you find out about RYLA? Because I mean, you attended um Your camper year is late, not late, like 18, 19 around there.
No, so my camper year was 2016 V2.
Okay.
So that's whenever we switched from going RYLA's, I believe it was in March or sometime around
Yep.
in there. And so we switched over to October. So this is actually a bit of a funny story too. This also involves speech and debate, because at the beginning of the year we always have a mock trial. So mock trial is trying to get especially the freshmen and the newcomers into the routine of going to these big old competitions. I'm a junior. I've done this twice now. I know how everything goes. I really did not want to go to this.
Yeah.
Conveniently, there is this camp that was pitched to all of us called RYLA that seemed like the perfect opportunity to get out of that mock trial. And so I was like, okay, they're just requiring a small essay. I fill out some information about myself, and bam, I'm going to RYLA. There's
Yeah.
there's probably 6 to 7 others of us that are going. We don't really have a clue. Rotary was pretty new to me. I had gotten small mentions of it throughout town. We do have a Rotary club over in Carthage. Heather Goff, I think I hope I pronounced her name right. So she was our sponsor going up there.
Okay.
And so upon getting there, it was this kind of weird experience of like I had been to a lot of different high school functions of, hey, we're going to tell you this different message, whether it be about your personal lives, whether it be how you're going to be going into this huge thing called college. There's all these
Yeah.
different things that were supposed to be motivational and supposed to impact us.
Hmm.
For a couple of students, that was always true. I never expected going into a bigger camp, especially one that lasted 4 days, that I'd be like, whoa, well, there's something a little bit different here. So I was trying to escape just a preparation for speech and debate, and ended up being at a camp. Now coming back to for the fifth time, even surviving the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, that 2016 timeframe was pretty pivotal. And there's a lot of folks that are around leadership from that 2016 timeframe. Um, and is I mean, Carthage has always had good numbers. I mean, I feel like Carthage has always sent a good chunk of kids. Is that Brett
Mm.
Collier? Is he over that way?
Brett Collier, yes, yeah. So
I
that
think I think he's a wrestling coach at the school now over there, if I remember correctly. Like he's working for the
I'm not too
education.
familiar. I haven't kept up with Carthage sports a whole lot.
Yeah.
I'm living over here in Orinoco now, which is about 15 minutes away.
Okay.
So as far as who all's involved with Carthage,
Yeah.
I need to be taking a step a bit further to actually reaching out to them,
Sure.
and getting some of those numbers back up.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I know they've always been a contributor, and somebody that we found success with in camp, and you're obviously a huge part of that. I think when you look at campers that come and then come back, what's the I mean, so we're talking fall of 16. So we've got 16, 17. You mentioned your fifth
Mhm.
camp coming back. I mean, you go to college, you've got a life. I mean, like, you're doing um, community theater, like all the things you're doing as a professional now, as a, working adult. Like, why continue to come back?
So, one of the things, and one thing to call out about my situation is that I never went to college. I went from high school straight into a career. I was very fortunate, that what I wanted to do, just overall graphic design and arts.
Yep.
The first job that I got was designing t-shirts.
Yeah.
So I was kind of forced into, not quite forced, it was kind of a choice. I was involved with Young Life, which is a high
Oh,
school church organization.
yep.
So I was taking an opportunity with them, and helping serve within the Carthage schools. But also I had the opportunity to be working on graphic design, seeing the application of my work onto something that's physical.
Yeah.
Um, and so one of the things going from, high school, it was awesome to go around and have people asking me why I had a red bandana on my backpack, and being able to tell them the story. The year that I went back, we actually had a good group of us start a Rotaract club. And so we got that going for about a year or so.
Yeah.
And I think whenever the pandemic had hit, things had kind of died down there. But for a while, we were able to get a couple of service projects pumped out. And so our group was pretty pivotal in trying to get more students coming into Carthage, but also just more involved just outside of RYLA. Um, but there was something just a little bit different about camp that I mentioned earlier, that it was there is a side of leadership that I always appreciated, because it's not only giving you the opportunity to be the one that everyone's looking out to, but it also gives you an opportunity to take a step back, and see how your work is moving within the other people, and seeing others start to grow and take that step. And so coming in as a CIT, there were several others that we were working with. There was lots of communication that was happening between us CITs, but also having the overall leadership of our chiefs. That's actually where I got to know Lucas.
Mm,
So Lucas was my chief,
okay.
along with Krista Eldridge. And so they were a good group of good bunch of people. There was another Elijah. That's where I met Angel Harris,
Yeah.
Sloan. And so that's kind of what kept me coming back, was that I'm not only building myself, there's a lot from RYLA that I've taken back, that I've applied at my career.
Yeah.
But it gives me that opportunity to give back. Um, the one of the main reasons that I came back was one of the last days of camp. Garrison Hale was my chief. The other chief was Audrey Dainty. Hunter Grinkle. I hope I pronounced your last name right if you're listening to this. But he was my CIT. But Garrison pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I want you to come back. This is a place that's meant for you." And I took that to heart. The next year I became an Eagle Scout, came back to camp, got into the CIT, um, and then eventually came back for a year or two of chief.
When you look at camp itself, like what's your favorite aspect of camp, like activity wise?
And activity wise, there's so much. Um, if I had to pick, um, if there was one that always kind of called out to me, the low ropes is, I think, kind of an underdog. I think there's a lot that you can learn from the low ropes, and there's a lot of small opportunities for you to kind of step forward. As a camper, the one that I really appreciated was the kind of the teeter totter.
Yep.
That was the one that I kind of had my Ryla moment with, because it was the one that I was able to finally figure it out.
Yeah.
And so getting everyone to kind of, listen in and say, hey, he kind of has a point, we're able to succeed, that's where I broke out. But I also noticed that it was also a breakout point for other campers too, especially the trust fall.
Yeah.
That's one that I actually now, as an adult, appreciate more. And every single year, I try to get a picture of me doing the trust fall, because there's typically one of our chaperones that's assisting me on the fall, and then it's all hopefully the campers that I've been helping.
Yeah.
And so it's like that, I'm trusting both parties in this experience, but I always know that as long as I'm listening, this past year was Michael Addington. As long as I'm listening to him, and it's very easy to listen to that dude, but
Yeah.
as long as I'm trusting my campers, and I know that's typically the case, that I'm just fine.
So
Um,
what's the like? Is there a? You mentioned that was kind of your Ryla moment. Um, when you look at camp and you look at the low ropes, I think that the team building and development. I mean, if people don't haven't been to camp, they may not understand. Like, I mean, you kind of come from a camper and you're like, it seems like everything's just like getting thrown at me, and then you see it as a
yeah,
CIT in chief, and now you see it on the leadership team. Like, there's a plan and a path, and like we really have a way to get from here to here. It's not just this like hypothetical, like, oh, they're just going to do this today. Like,
Right.
everything has a purpose to get us to Sunday. And you mentioned your chief looking at you and saying, "Hey, I want you to come back." Um, that personal investment that people make obviously matters, and the experiences we have at camp matter. Um, can you think back to like this past October? We moved back to the fall permanently. When you think back to this October, was there a moment at camp where you just like, that was pretty cool that it stuck with you from October?
Yes. So there was one. It didn't happen until after everyone had left. And what was kind of cool is, typically we all sit around at lunch and we're talking about different stories. And there was something that I was just doing offhand at the beginning of camp, which was just drawing on pieces of paper, just the most random images. And I can't even remember what I had drawn on this one. But Z was writing little bitty messages on the back, and one of them said, "You are loved." And I had just seen a random camper sitting alone at a table. I was like, "Ooh, this is kind of perfect." Set it on the table, didn't look her in the eye. I tried to make it as inconspicuous as possible and just walked away. Turns out that was kind of a turning point for her at camp. She didn't feel like she kind of belonged there, and just a random drawing and a sweet little message from Z
Yeah.
was enough to kind of change that moment around for her and say, "Oh, maybe I do belong here. Maybe there is a point. Maybe people are here to
Yeah.
actually support me." So that was kind of looking back, like, yes, like
Yeah.
I was able to get my tribe going. I was able to make sure that they're supported. That's just my job as part of leadership,
Uh-huh.
but I was able to make a random impact on someone that really was struggling, and I'm really helpful to either see them again or they're able to kind of tell that story and have that little drawing and that little bitty note that they're able to look back along with the rest of the cards that they got from their campers and say, "Okay, there was a little bit of an impact here."
Yeah, you talk, I mean, like these random acts of kindness. And that's again, I think that's what I love the most about Christmas and I love about the holiday season in general, is people are willing to be genuine and make these random acts of kindness. And I look at like that comment you just made, like it doesn't take the holiday season to do that.
Nope.
I will say this. I mean, I do. I mean, I was very unaware until this year at camp how artistic you were. And I think it was one of my kids had something that you had drawn for him, and I was like, man, that is amazing. Like, who drew that? Um, and then quickly, I saw you throughout camp when there was a moment where you could just pause, like that's what you were doing was drawing. Um, and I look at like those what some people may see as a simple task or see as a simple thing with a huge impact. I mean, when you draw, and art has that opportunity because it takes time. It's not something like hey, you got $1? Like, yeah, here's $1. You know, I can give you $1. I can give you $1 right now as long as I got it. But that takes an amount of time that I think is should not go unnoticed. And so that act of kindness, I do. I hope the person that you gave that to, I absolutely hope they do tell you that they got it. I hope that they do have it hanging somewhere, um, because it wasn't just random. I do believe we all know that everything happens for a reason in this world, and our job is to influence and drop some opportunity in there on the kindness side, and change the way you've got that change starts with me shirt on, like truly change the paradigm of how people treat people. Um, People get information a lot of different ways these days. And for somebody to stop and pause and just say, hey, open the door for somebody. I watched a kid at Maddox's school the other day open the door for somebody, probably 25 kids he opened the door for. He literally stood there and I thought, the whole time, like, how many kids walked past that kid and said thank you? I watched a lot of them not do it. I watched
Right.
I watched him try to make an attempt to make eye contact with every one of them, and very few people did it. Those random acts of kindness go a long ways, and sometimes those random acts of kindness come with a skill or something that you're really excellent at, and I think that using our talents to ensure that our mission is shared is important, and you definitely do that. Um, on that side of things. So tell me a little bit about, so we're talking like as a professional, you got time. I mean, you walk into the community theater. I mean, you can't, leadership skills are necessary there too. What are some things when it comes to leadership that like, Elijah is like true to, like these are the things that Elijah wants to make sure of if he comes in contact with others, to show that Elijah is a leader.
So I've talked quite a bit about theater. There's another side of it that I use RYLA quite a bit for, and that's my career. I'm a product designer, so I'm the one that's changing app layouts, website layouts, looking at companies, overall branding, and trying to ensure that the users that are going into these products are having the best experience possible, but also ensuring that the businesses are achieving their goals. That takes a lot of communication across the board. That takes, you're not only looking into research, you're talking to the users, trying to figure out, what issues they're having with something that you have potentially created. You're also trying to balance that with marketing. You're trying to balance that with product, with the engineers, specifically with what I'm doing. So there's probably 3 or 4 different people that I'm trying to listen to. And so one of the big things about leadership that I tend to focus on is how do you take, receive, and give feedback? I think that is something that's very, very important. And so just looking at how camp tends to function is that you're not going to get everything right every single time. Is that there's going to be a lot of trial and error. And you're going to have to learn from, whether it be you might not say something necessarily right. There might be an activity that you're going into, you might not necessarily have the best info. That might just be from miscommunication. That's just a part of human nature. And so that's something that I strive to, as a leader, try and stand out, is how can I give someone feedback, whether it be critical, whether it be just trying to be helpful, but try and turn around for a positive impact. But also try and teach and make sure that I'm also aware that, I have to receive that feedback, but also teach others to do the same.
Yeah.
Is that everything takes a lot of communication. RYLA, it's, you guys are talking to us as leadership. Leadership is communicating down to the chiefs. Chiefs are communicating down to the CITs, and so on and so forth. With careers, whether it be theater, it's the exact same thing. It's this giant web of communication, but it's also learning to trust those around you, and being able to take what they say and say, I'm wanting you to improve. I want us to see us do better. But that's going to take some change. And sometimes change is very, very hard.
Yeah, I think you hit on something there that I think is mission critical, and that's feedback. Um, in any profession, feedback's got to be constant. And if it's not right, if it's something's broken or something's not working, if there's constant feedback, it doesn't feel personal. If
Mm-hmm.
feedback's only provided when feedback is a challenge, then feedback tends to feel a little bit personal. Like, oh my gosh, what did we screw up? Like, oh my gosh, I really screwed up, versus, hey, constantly getting feedback around a system, a process, a tool, um, positively what I'm challenged with. That's why parent teacher conferences exist for kids, right? Like,
Exactly.
is like parent feedback, right? But if I can have real-time feedback on a daily basis, and now you got teachers that use different apps to, here's this week's lesson plan versus just sending a sheet of paper home. Um, I think feedback's mission critical, man. I mean, I think you said something that nobody has said over these past 7 weeks. Really, as I've done the RYLA routine, you're I think the 8th person that we've had on, and like since camp, and really, you're the first person to mention feedback, and I think that's probably a lot to do with your element, and a lot to do with you, and that's why you're probably great at the career you're in, is because feedback is critical throughout that, and you actually won't have success with clients, and you won't have success with your team, because in your line of work, one person doesn't typically do it all. It's typically a bunch of
Right.
different people touching the brand or touching the web. There's a lot of things and a lot of people, and so if you can't communicate, you can't provide feedback, and you can't accept feedback too. The acceptance of feedback is the challenging part. nobody likes to
Yes.
be told what they're not good at, or like my idea wasn't the idea that was chosen. Um, like, I mean, I asked, every year I post camp put out a camper survey, and like, there's always somebody that doesn't like something at camp, and like, I have to digest that and go, well, is that the norm, or is that a user's experience, or somebody says, hey, what about doing it this way? We have a lot of those conversations around camp, but guess what? That's real life. I mean, if you can't take
Yep.
feedback in real life, you're challenged, especially if you decide to find somebody that you want to live with the rest of your life. Because it's 365 days of somebody watching you and providing feedback about, hey, this is what I'd like to do. This is how, what do you think about this? As having a spouse, if that's the path people go down, um, it's constant feedback. It's feedback with my kids, um, on that side of things. So I applaud you, because that's something that's deep, man. That's something that I appreciate hearing, because it's not just important to you. That's important to everybody. And that's important to me. And not just at camp. It goes far beyond camp.
And I think there's something that you had called out there. So let's call back to agree to disagree and just how you're communicating across the board. Speech and debate also has the same element, is that there's two sides. There's a pro and a con in speech and debate. There's agree and disagree whenever it comes to whatever major political question. I won't get into those right now.
Yeah.
But there's ways that we have to be able to look at someone else in the other eye, hear their opinion, whether it boils our blood, and whether or not it totally goes against what we have known. But be able to look them in the eye and say, hey, let's agree to disagree. We may not agree on this, but I still respect you as a person.
Yeah.
This also goes back into feedback, is you may not exactly like how I've set something up. You may not like the wording. There might be something like, there might be a color that's off.
Yeah.
And you have to look at that feedback and say, hey, it's not all negative. If you read into it, there's a positive there. There's something that I can do to change what I've created to potentially bring a better experience across the board. And that takes communication between whether it be the users that I'm designing this experience for, or whether I'm talking to one of my higher ups or an engineer that say, hey, I don't know why the heck you laid out this design like this. Why didn't we go for something that's similar to this? And, it punches me in the gut for a second, but
Yeah.
I look at that feedback and I say, okay, they have a point.
Sure.
Sometimes it's not always about what's going on in my head. Let's listen to the other person, because they may know just a little bit of something else that I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. 110%, 110%. And that's a great lesson in leadership. I just tell you, I am so glad you brought that up, because that's an absolute lesson in leadership. It's a lesson in life. If
Yes.
everybody had that conversation and understood the context of feedback, I think that we'd be in a much better place. As we wrap this up, outside of you just being an awesome person, an awesome individual, is there anything else you want to share with folks before we wrap this thing up?
If anything, just be creative. I mean, I'll talk about my mission a little bit. I know that's a big thing with RYLA is our mission. My mission is to ignite, enlighten, and inspire creativity in myself and others. You see that with drawing. You see that with the way that I try to interact, and if there's anything that I wanted to kind of share with others, is be creative. Don't be afraid to look just a little silly, like a little bit of a goober. Going up on stage, it takes stepping into a completely different personality, and potentially looking like an absolute fool. People are going to laugh at you. People are going to ask, why the heck are you doing that? But there's a freeing element to it. There's something, and there's something that you can do to inspire others. There's been plenty of times on that I've come off a stage, and I'm saying, meet and greet. People are like, how can I do what you do? And it's just a matter of, hey, go to auditions, but don't be afraid to just put yourself out there. Oh, there's a little bitty thumbs up. Um, but it's also true with just with the work environment too. At work, we have a bunch of rubber ducks on our desks to remind ourselves to before we ask the client a question, can I think outside of the box? Is there something creative that I can do to
Yeah.
potentially solve the problem? There's also a side of creativity that it makes someone think and question. You know, there's a lot of drawings that were probably handed out to people that they looked at it like, what the heck is this? I think there was one that it was a space worm coming out of a hole in the moon. And it had some random quote on the back, and there was probably a good chance that someone saw that was like, what the heck is this? But
Yeah.
there's also that someone probably saw that was like, that's stupid cool. How the
Yeah.
heck do I do that? You
Right.
know, I think it was Devin and I think Sawyer a little bit that were coming over and was looking at all the different pins. And I think Maddox may have even wanted some of the pins that I had.
Yeah.
And was trying to figure out like, hey, how do you do this? And
Yeah.
that's what I absolutely love to hear is someone willing to pick up a pencil, pick up a pen, be willing to sit there for a couple of hours and draw a bunch of shapes that may not make sense because it takes time, it takes effort, but it takes a little bit of creativity. And
Yeah.
creativity goes a long, long way.
Yeah. I take a chance, right?
Yes, take a
Take a chance.
chance.
Take a chance.
Yes.
Take it. That's what I hear. Take a chance. Provide feedback. Elijah, you're awesome, man. Um, Everybody, as you get this, you got one more week before Christmas. Just enjoy the moment too. I know everybody's gonna be pulling you 500 different ways. Maybe you're out of school. Maybe you're got a couple days off for work. Spend some time doing what you love. Spend some time. Maybe that's being curious. I think that's what Elijah's saying is, be curious. What if, and challenge yourself a little bit in the what if. Maybe don't drive yourself in the ground with it, but challenge yourself a little bit with that. Um, we'll definitely have our next Sunday ends up being a Christmas Eve edition. So maybe
Woo.
Santa Claus will show up. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll see. But Elijah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you a lot, brother. Hope you have an awesome rest of your weekend. Hope you have an awesome week ahead. Merry Christmas, and thanks for being awesome, brother.
Yes. Thank you, Matt. Thank you for being awesome as well. This has been a lot of fun as also seeing everyone else and having these conversations with you. So continue doing this. And I hope to see it again.
Awesome, brother. Take care.
All right. Have a happy holiday.
You as well. Bye bye.